right. Good morning. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. It's a Thursday, a late Santa rally, maybe. It's nice to have it's nice to wake up to a green day. That's for sure. But just before we join on, before we say hi to who's here, don't forget to say hi, say good morning. And for those that are watching on the replay, we go live 8 o'clock Pacific time to about 8:45 Monday to Friday. So it'd be great to have you join on live if you can make it. It would be great to have you here. And if you are new to the viewing channel, we've got a great group of people here. Don't be afraid to say good morning and see how everybody's doing. I'm going to have a sip of coffee. The coffee that I ordered arrived yesterday, so I've got my favorite coffee today, which was nice. And it was on sale, which is even better. And let's see who's here today. We've got a couple people here. Candice, welcome. Always good to have you, Candice. Hopefully your day is going well. Hopefully you're making some money day trading today. I don't know how that is going for you today. And MC, always good to have you. MC, I picked up a couple articles that we were talking about yesterday about GICs. We'll get into that in the news. I tracked some things down, so that will be good to talk about. And there's kind of a fun one, actually, kind of an interesting one that I dug up on searching on Google this morning. So that is good. Good morning. And Stan's here. Good morning. Welcome, everybody. Always good to have the crew. I guess we need I don't know. There's no nicknames for the regulars yet. I guess we have to think of a regular. Maybe we'll think of that. We can call the regulars. I don't know. Something catchy. Instead of just the regulars would sound better, but we'll figure something out. So going forward, yeah, it looks like, I mean, yesterday was terrible, but nice to see a bit of a rebound on stuff today. Obviously, I mean, I can speak for myself. I'm a long-term investing in my TFSA, so I'm not too worried of those days like yesterday. But it's nice to have the flip side of that. And then you look and you go, oh, I wish I should have bought some of this yesterday because it was on sale. But we've got lots of time for that. We don't have to rush into do anything, that is for sure. So that's not the case for me. The next kind of scheduled purchase is going to be, well, Monday is closed because of so many holidays. You lose track this time of year, like what day it is, what year it is, where we are. But it is closed because it's New Year's Day. So Tuesday will be my purchase. I'm starting that for the new year, right? That $100 weekly, that will be started on Tuesday. So normally would be Monday. It's going to be Tuesday if the market is closed. So that's all I have planning. So if anybody else, obviously, as always, if you are looking at anything, buying anything today, let us know in the comments. It's always good to hear what people are thinking today. That's for sure. On that note, I did have a question. I figured I know we've talked about it a little bit on the channel because someone had left a comment yesterday, and I know this has come up I think in the chat a couple times, but it was from I can't pull up the comment in Streamer, but it was from someone, the username Nature Lover, and they had asked what were my thoughts on HYLD. So HYLD.TO, that's the I think it's from what I understand, it's a new ETF, because I think it just kind of launched. It's the Hamilton Enhanced US Covered Call ETF. It launched recently, so it launched in, looks like September-ish, I think. If I'm not mistaken. No, that's a utility one. Sorry, I mixed up. HYLD, maybe it's been around for a while. Sometimes the article pulled a bit different one. And I had no idea, because I know we've talked about it. And so if anybody has any comments or anything that they could, let up in the chat, maybe fire them up so I can share them, and I'll share this link in the stream to the comment. And I figured that'd be better than me. I mean, because on my comment, my answer would be I have no idea. But okay, so it was new, so it is under a year. And someone, if I'm not mistaken, Justin, someone bought some by mistake, or I can't remember now, but someone bought some maybe by mistake. They were trying to buy something else, but there's this HYLD and there's something else that gets it mixed up, but could be wrong. So if anybody has any comments, let me know. If you are watching this even on the replay, leave a comment. I'll make sure it gets directed over. It's hard to know everything and like thoughts on everything, like, because there's thousands and thousands of ETFs. It's like, I don't know, So I mean, I only have a handful in my TFSA, so it's tough to give that recommendation. Obviously, I never try and recommend anything, but it's hard to kind of point them in that direction. So Justin, thank you. This helps. It's invested in good stocks with leverage. Uses covered calls to use premiums to boost the dividend payout. There you go. I mean, it looks decent from what I looked at. It's just, if you start investing in everything that catches your eye, looking everywhere, you'd have no money in any investment. It would just be little bits and pieces, bits and pieces everywhere, and not really doing anything, because it's impossible to be everywhere at all the time. That's the hard part. So, and it's good for each of our bear or fiat markets. Okay, or flat markets. I saw that, bear or flat markets. Good call. I mean, that's kind of where we're at. So might not be a bad idea. I'll pass that comment on, Justin. Really appreciate it. Get that over. Yeah, perfect. And I wonder if I can. I can't. Can I copy? I can't copy the comments on there. I'll track it down. Thank you. And there we go. And Brian, I didn't miss you there. I saw you come through. Thanks for tuning in, Brian. How's your morning going? How's your portfolio doing? If you'd be put on the spot if you're coming in, did you buy anything today? There we go. So on to some news, and MC, this was for you. I know yesterday we were talking about we seem to kind of, GICs are popular, so we were talking about GICs yesterday, and where some good ones are, and how many people, who's buying GICs, and I thought I would do some digging into trying to find out exactly, or as much as possible, how much Canadians are starting to pour into GICs versus other investments. We've seen some articles where people are pulling out of mutual funds quite heavily into ETFs, and so I was trying to track down something on GICs, and I couldn't find a ton. I just found I found one article on the Globe and Mail, but it was behind a paywall, so I don't have the Globe and Mail. Paywalls just drive, again, that's a whole other tangent. Paywall drives me crazy. They should just have ads on the page and let everybody read it. They probably make more money, I would think. Anyways, so I couldn't read the Globe and Mail articles, but I did find one on Yahoo Finance. It was unfortunate. Here, I'm going to pull it. I'll pull it up, and we'll share this. And it was the most recent one I could find, and it wasn't like super. Oh, that's what it was. Proud owner of Enbridge that I thought was Amira. Yeah, maybe it was you. I know there's been a couple people, like, you buy something and you're like, that's the wrong thing. And yeah, I've done that before too. It's still sitting there, and it's the confusing. Well, I bought the right stock. But I bought it in the wrong account. So I do have a Wealthsimple I have a non-registered trade account, right? And when I first bought some Tesla CDR, Brian, I think it was like five. I forget how many. It was like 5 shares. I think $100 worth or something like that. I bought it in the wrong account. It's still sitting there. So I've done that before too. Things like that. You buy the wrong thing. Yeah. That's one thing to be careful with, especially too, though, if you are sitting at your limit. That's where you have to be careful. If you're sitting at your limit of your TFSA for deposits, and all of a sudden you kind of don't pay attention as much, and you might put it into the wrong account. Just the way the app worked, I don't know why. I must have put the deposit into the wrong. That's what I did. I put the deposit into the wrong account. Didn't realize it. And then I thought, okay, I'm just going to, and you just do it so quickly on the app. It's like, okay, I'm going to deposit, put it in, and then I realized, oh crap, it's in my personal. So I've just left it. It's not like it all kind of ends up. I mean, not this. I mean, I wanted it in my TFSA, but whatever. I've done that. So, anyways, yeah. And that's kind of what it usually, works. It works out if you're not too, so hopefully something works out, right? And you have a few A versus preferred share. Yeah, it can be confusing, right? it can definitely be confusing to it once you want to try and buy, because there's the same names for things and all that kind of stuff where you get kind of confused. That happened when Facebook switched their name to, no, when they started to do, was it when they switched their name to Meta, or when they started to work on the Meta, like when they did all that, there was some other company called Meta that just went crazy because everybody thought that was Facebook, whether that was kind of as a meme, kind of investors doing it all, jumping in like the Redditors on a joke. I don't know, but that was kind of, that's the confusing part sometimes like that. So. And here we go. So we'll get, and as we get sidetracked, I do have that article ready to go. So a lot of financial journals, and they covering GICs. It seems to be a lot, obviously, because the interest rates are up. Even savings accounts a little bit too kind of come up. So I wouldn't be surprised either for lots of inflows to quarter four. Maybe we'll see more statistics come out coming into the new year at the end of the year. But I did find a couple articles on GICs, and one is kind of a fun one, which I think people will like. So let me just share this. So let's pull this up. This was this one I found, it was from RBC. So I think this is only RBC deposits, but 25 billion seems like a lot. But again, it doesn't really differentiate. So I'm thinking I'm going to say it's RBC because they're obviously talking about it's going into the deposit. So RBC, this is back from November 30th of this year. RBC, very strong, $25 billion influx into GIC in recent months. So Canadians are in love with them again. Royal Bank, they said so it was on the earnings, so it must have come into RBC 25 billion. So on the earnings conference call from that Wednesday. So this is back obviously from one of the last earning calls. Roughly 25 billion of customer money flowed into GICs over the past few quarters. So over the past kind of almost a year. So we'll see more probably in the new year. It doesn't get into a lot of details of what, but they're obviously again in vogue, right? Because it's the data on it is the 1, 3, and 5-year GIC rates at banks haven't risen over 5% in more than 2 decades. So 20 years. So people are getting back in there because the returns are good. So there we go. That's what I could find on numbers wise. So it'll be really interesting to see what come the new year, what people are buying. That's for sure. And there we go. So yeah, reading headlines. So yeah, I guess so. Hey, but this is what people also, I mean, not necessarily algorithm, like people follow headlines too, right? MC, if they're starting to see a lot of, I mean, I can think back before rates started to rise, we would never talk about GIs. I mean, if I wasn't doing these streams, but even with friends and coworkers and stuff, like we would talk investments. And when the rates were rock bottom, GICs never came up in the conversation, right? So now that they're up, they're turning into the day-to-day conversation for people to show up. And so we'll see it in the news, and so they will be more popular. So people will jump on that because there's nothing wrong. Like there's really nothing wrong with getting 5% if you think about it without any risk, right? You're just kind of it's just the time, that you that they're locked in, right? That's the only, I mean, there's risk in that if you need to access it. Because, I mean, depending on your investment term and long term, that's where you have to be careful is don't put all of your, again, the same thing, right? Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Don't lock everything into a 5-year GIC if you think you might need some of it in a year, because or less. That's the thing. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Quite simple. There we go. And good morning, Nadia. Good morning. We're just talking about, thanks for tuning in. We are just talking about GICs and how they're paying good, decent returns these days. I don't know if you have any GICs, but that's what we're talking about today. And influencers, yeah, that's exactly it. So yeah. And that's what people are kind of doing. I mean, we've had people commenting on the live stream before MC2 going, I might have been, I forget, because you talked about EQ Bank, I think. Someone was talking about EQ Bank, and it was like their 5-year GIC used to be 5.1%, and now it's dropped down to 5, and they're like, oh, I missed it, kind of thing. So it's like one of these things. It's like it's hard to time these, right? Really hard to time. Like any investment, you're trying to time. Are you trying to time with the GIC? You're trying to time the top of the interest mark, and then you miss out. You make a little bit less, but just shows how things can change so quickly that it's almost impossible to kind of time anything. And it's funny how this conversation about FOMO into GICs, I find kind of funny, because for the last, we just looked at the past 20 years, no one would FOMO into a GIC, and now there is. So it's interesting times for sure. So nothing wrong with GIC. I've decided to kind of put more cash component, not into GIC, but more into the high yield savings ETF instead. That's just seems to work. I think will be better for me, instead of locking something in. There's something to be said about having a bit of liquidity, like a bit more access. That's the one thing with GICs. You have to be really careful. Be really careful of locking things in. That's all. So I did have one more thing. This is what showed up on when I was searching for GICs and deposits and everything else. And I found this one really funny and interesting, actually. So I figured I'd pull it up. It's from an article a while ago. It's back from, when was this dated? This was from, it's actually quite recent, actually. Sorry, it was from December 21st of this year. So it is recent. So someone in Ontario, a lady in Ontario, she found a $25,000 GIC investment certificate in her, I guess she was cleaning out her family home or home office, and she found a GIC for $25,000 that she purchased from Scotiabank in 1993, 29 years ago. This is when you used to get them on paper, like this. Probably still similar, but I would assume they're now that they're all obviously electronic. They're not filling these things out by hand anymore. So she took this in. She wasn't sure if this thing had been cashed in. And what happened was she went to Scotiabank, and she can't remember if she's cashed it in. It didn't kind of indicate that it was indicated cashed in on the certificate, but that, you never know, right? If it was I'm not sure how long the term actually was. I think it was but they didn't, the bank, Scotiabank, didn't have records from 1993 left. They don't have it anymore. It was all kept on microfilm or microfiche, those, and they had no record. So they can't really, they can't figure out if she's cashed it or not. So I guess keep on top of your investments, that's for sure, because especially before kind of a lot of electronic investments that you can't keep track of. So she was out, but it did break down if she had actually held. They worked it out. Well, apparently, first, obviously, banks only hold stuff for they only hold records, I think, for 7 years. And if there was unclaimed money after 10 years, the money is supposed to be sent to Bank of Canada's unclaimed balances. There's an unclaimed balances section that people can just go and apply and prove that it's their funds. Her funds weren't there, but there's just no way of knowing that it was what it was ever invested. So maybe, it probably, end of the day, it probably actually was, if there's kind of no, something like that, because I'm going to assume maybe if it's a family house or something, maybe it was owned by one of her parents. So if you would think that if you had a $25,000 investment, you would kind of know if you cashed it in. Even from 1993, you'd kind of go, I kind of remember cashing this in. So it was probably from family or something like that, and had no idea. It'd be like me going to my mom's house or something and finding something, and if they're no longer with you, you'd have no idea. So it's kind of hard to look back. But if they did work it out, and if it was paying 5.5% at the time. So there we go. Rates back then were like kind of like where they were now. If someone did invest it at that rate over 29 years, and this just shows compounding, right? Over 29 years, it would be worth $118,000 and $118,103 today. So I found that one kind of fun to look at these old investments that people have. And I remember like those GIC certificates. I remember as a kid, my mom having the old Canada savings bonds, and they were actually like pieces of paper that you would buy, and you'd buy them from the bank. You'd go in and you'd buy your Canada savings bonds, and then you put them in your wherever safety deposit box, or keep them at home, or wherever you would keep them secure. And then after the end of the term, you would take them back to the bank and they would cash them in. Those the good old days of the Canada. I think they can't. When did they cancel? Gosh, I have to even. When did they even cancel those purchases? Let me just Google that. They must still, because they've all reached premium, but I don't know when they stopped. When did they? I don't know actually. Oh, 2017. Because they used to sell them like kind of this time of year, right? It used to be like before the new year you could buy them, and it was so they ended in 2017. So they all matured and they're no longer done. So, oh, we saw that one. There we go. MC also. It's a strong pro con for GIC versus fixed income bonds. Bonds tanked. Bonds totally did tank, and yeah, GICs actually did decent, right? Yeah, that makes sense actually. MC, people that would normally go into bonds would move over to GICs because you're coming back. You're making probably similar what you would normally should have made in some of the bonds. I know I have a portion of, because I have my RRSP, and like I have my old company, like an old Lira locked in account with Wealthsimple on the invest side, and I know the bond it's you have to do a portion. That's kind of the downside with a robo advisor thing, for better or worse. But I have a small, like a portion, right? It's not a six. It's definitely less than a 60-40 split, but you have to have a certain portion of. I think unless you call them, maybe change it, but it breaks it down. And there's a small portion of bonds, and they're doing terrible. Yeah, I think they're down like 10. I mean, whatever percentage is huge. It's not good, especially if you're all into bonds. That's for sure. So that makes sense with that, with maybe the demographic that would normally have a lot of bonds and more fixed income investments would go over to GICs, because it's like, why wouldn't you? The downside is if you're selling your bonds and they're down, that's the downside. You're taking that. You're taking that loss. But maybe if you're still doing new investments, it might make sense to go into maybe more GIC if you're more of a secure fixed income investor, because it hasn't been pretty this year for bonds. And yeah, not 100. If it wasn't cash, yeah, it's kind of like found money. That'd be nice to find in the cupboard. Cleaning out someone's desk, and you find a old GIC from 30 years ago. Crazy. It's like an old account. On that, it's funny note on the old accounts. When we were setting up, my parents are getting older. When we were setting up making sure all the family POAs, like all the power of attorney stuff and everything was set up properly, just in case something happened. With my brother and I, we had to go into the bank, in my parents' bank, and we had to get set, because we don't bank there, so I had to get set up with everything to be added to the accounts and get the bank POA and everything set up. And it turned out when we were setting everything up, my brother, they found he had an old account at the bank, and it was like an old savings account, I think from when he was a kid, and obviously he must have cleared it out, because the balance worked out to, I think it was like 35, 36, like it was under 100. It was under $100, but it was like, $35 that he didn't even know he had at this old bank account that was sitting in a no fee savings account for, I don't know how long. There must have been pennies in there when he cleared it out. Like he must have emptied it out, and then of course the interest came, and then that just kind of built up over probably same thing, however many years, and it just kind of carried on and carried on. So had kind of it was a little windfall. It wasn't a $25. It wasn't a $118,000 one, but it was in there. So it was too funny. And Nadia used to work at CIBC a long time ago. And if we couldn't get a hold of clients on maturity, if the GIC was to roll over into the same term, so it happens, people forget they have them. There you go. Yeah, and that would be probably a lot more of the times when there was like people. I mean, I'm thinking back 1990. When talking about this article, 1993, there was no like we had debit cards and stuff like that, like Interact tellers and stuff like that, machines, but there was no online banking for anything. I don't think back then. Probably just kind of starting, or about to kind of start. So you'd have these things, right? And they were given on paper. It's just like, where do you, if people can. It's funny that you would have to. I would assume now if you have a GIC, they probably just almost like roll over automatically. If you don't, same thing. And I would assume they probably actually don't even try and get a hold of you much anymore. Or just kind of like maybe send you a notice in the email saying it's about to mature or something. But they just roll them over into the same term. There you go. So good to know. So if you have a 5-year GIC back in the day, it would just keep rolling over. So maybe that one hasn't been cashed, but they'd have no way of tracking it down because the banks don't have the records from that long ago. That's too funny to go back. And I think MC, I think you're right on 60/40 portfolio, maybe ever, probably. I guess this is the worst. And so for people that are watching, I mean, I'm going to assume hopefully if everybody doesn't know the 60/40 portfolio, it's a split between 60% of it, like equities, stocks, more, and then 40% in bonds. So 60/40 split was a common way to split it. A very common way for a lot of people to split up their portfolio. It's kind of like, because you couldn't go wrong, right? If the stock market was down, the 40% would keep it level and your losses wouldn't be as bad. Now this year, really bad for both. I don't know if it's the worst ever. I'm going to assume, I mean, I don't know I'd have to look back because I wasn't really as looking into investing stuff back in 2008-9. So I'm wondering how they performed. I think they performed probably a bit better in 2008. I think that would be kind of maybe the mark to go back and check MC. From what I've read though, is like equities are worse, like almost as bad as coming into 2008. And also like a lot of things have come back again. Today they come back up a little bit, but a lot of things are down to below like a lot of equities are down to below their their COVID drop. Amazon, like a lot of the tech has really been hit. So I don't know how, but it probably is. I think so. I think you're, if not the worst, is pretty close, pretty ugly. And okay, 35 years ago. So they would take the class on a field trip to the local bank to get all the students to open savings and checking account. I bet you they are. Bet you they are. There's probably lots that have just sat there. That's for sure. I'm trying to think, when switching banks, I had at one point, I think I had an account and I got a letter saying that now it's dormant, so close it off. But there was really nothing. There was nothing in it, and it was kind of like, if you don't come and close it, we're going to start charging you, which is like, if I haven't used it for years. And then so I ended up just going in and closing it off because they were going to start charging you $5 a month or whatever it was to try and get you out of there. So, but I remember as a kid getting my first savings account back in the day. I had the passbook. It was like a book that they would put paper in, like those old Bank of Montreal. I can date myself, those blue little plastic books with two little snaps. And then they'd put it in the machine, piece of paper, print it out, and then would have your balance on the page. It would stack up. as you see your bank book. Back in those days, yeah, and then you would know how much you had in your bank because you'd have your bank book. I mean, now you can look online, but if I guess somebody's a bit easier to maybe just have your passbook and just kind of look at it and go, okay, I have enough, analog system of business. Let's see. Yeah, I remember those too. Yeah, those old days. I used to work at a store, and the machine didn't have like the debit, like I mean, if someone paid by a credit card, yeah, you had the the card slider. You put your card in there, or people's card, and then you would slide it, right, and it would copy their card, and you would that's how you would pay and submit, which is crazy, right? Well, now these days, because you're like, I mean, cards don't even have the numbers embossed on them anymore to be able to do that. And then it's crazy how far we've come, right? Used to have to, which it's funny too, because they used to do that like in restaurants and stuff like that. They still kind of do it in restaurants. Well, restaurants more take the machine to you now, but a lot of times, like people always are so paranoid about giving their credit card, right? Over the phone or whatever like that, and to a company you maybe don't know that well and that kind of stuff. But if you think about it, like people would always go to restaurants and leave the card in the envelope. The waiter, waitress, or whoever would take it, go to the back, and you wouldn't see, and they just come out with your bill, and it would be like, well, what are you doing with my card? And anyways. And then the old days, so the carbon, like people would, I'm going to assume like scammers would, so now they find it all online, but they would go into through with the carbon copies. You would just have it, and it would be like in the car, if it's maybe in the garbage or something like that. Some of those old carbon copy things, all the good old days. And then you'd have to make sure, this is so silly, because you were doing, I remember working at the store, you would have to make sure the slip you got was the right slip, right? Obviously, if you're paying with a MasterCard, you have to use a MasterCard slip. If you're paying with a Visa, you got to use the Visa slip. And then it was trouble if you ever did it the wrong one. You'd get, I think they would get charged. I think the servicing fee ended up charging more or something like that. I forget. You would just try not to do it individually. I think eventually maybe they switched to, it was like a universal one. I could be wrong. I can't remember that far back, but that's kind of what had happened. So it's always kind of funny how things have changed. And now if you look at payment stuff, and everything's so quick, relatively quick, and it's a lot simpler, right? You go to the store, you can tap your phone unless it's over a certain amount. You just go onto Amazon, punching your card is saved. You don't even have to put in your card number anymore. You just have to make sure your password is, sometimes log in. Sometimes you don't even need to log into Amazon if it saves it on your browser. You just kind of log in and you do it and choose the card, and it's all super fast and easy. The interesting thing with credit cards though is if we're looking into like the future, I mean the credit card processing payment system, it still takes time to settle, which is such an it's one thing, we have all this technology to be able to pay for things quickly, but on the back end of it still takes a long time for the settlement to happen. That's why sometimes on your bills you just don't see, you might not see you might not see the transaction sometimes for a week or so, just depending, or it might not be on even the next bill, and all of a sudden you get a transaction shows up, because this takes a long time to actually settle, and it has this, you get that month, you're still getting that monthly statement, which it takes time to go through, which is interesting how the banking system, for as much as it's advanced, it's still kind of in the slow dark ages of things. Try sending a wire transfer for something, especially out of country. I mean, it can take a week or more for the wire to show up. Plus, not being able to do it on weekends or holidays, which is baffling. It's kind of crazy. So, and so that would be interesting to see what happens. Getting onto that tangent on payment frequencies and stuff, just seeing what happens with obviously digital stuff, Bitcoin Lightning, that kind of stuff, I find really interesting going forward. And I've seen a lot of those ads too. Google has the ads for the tap, Google Pay, and that's actually what I use on my phone. It's Google Wallet or whatever it's called, and just you can load your cards in there. Uh, and You just literally put it in, and you have to log into your phone. Obviously, hopefully you have a password on your phone with your fingerprint or whatever, or a password. And then you just tap it. Pretty easy. Uh, yeah, and that's exactly what you do. You just make sure you have to log into your phone with your I don't know, MC, if you do you use tap? I mean, I started using it about a year or so, quite often. I never did, because I never loaded it stuff on my phone. Then I realized, because also too, because a lot of the stores and places of purchase have updated their machines, so they have the ability to do it. But before you didn't actually have some of the ones, just depending on how, but I think everywhere is pretty much updated to be able to accept tap with that kind of stuff. So it's definitely easy. The only downside with tap is sometimes there's limits on the amounts, obviously, so you might have to put in your physical card. The downside with that is, if you don't, for some reason, if you aren't carrying that physical card with you, you go to try and buy something with tap, and it's like, oh, you can't do that. So you need to make sure you still have your card in your wallet, which is kind of like, kind of defeats the purpose sometimes, but that's just what it is. And I think so. I don't have an iPhone, but I have like Android, Google, and I use tap all the time. If anybody else, let us know in the comments if you use tap on your phones, and if it's Apple or Android. I mean, it's obviously works kind of similar. I think with the Apple one too is you can use your watch. I think your watch, you can pay with it too if it's connected. I could be wrong on that. I don't have either. So, but it is pretty simple once you have it set up and put your card in there. Yeah, that makes sense, MC, if you still use physical credit card or debit card. I I use I use it because I have Shakepay on it, so that's kind of how I use for my like discretionary stuff. But I still carry my wallet, just habit, out of if anything, because if you're going out, if I'm going somewhere, I'm probably driving, so I have to have you have to have your license. Uh, I don't think you can store your license on there. So if you ever get pulled over or something, I don't think they're going to accept I don't think if you have to show your license, I don't think they're going to accept a picture of it on your phone. I could be wrong, but I've never been pulled over, knock on wood. But I still carry in my wallet. I still have my cards. But if you're still carrying stuff, you have to be careful too, because you can just as easily lose your wallet, right? So it's almost probably safer on your phone, because your phone is password protected. So if someone gets it, it would have to be wiped out if they're going to try and get it, unless they figure out and know your password or somehow get into it. But pretty good chance it's pretty secure. So after you put the password in a number of times, it's going to wipe the phone. So just something to be aware of if you're keeping stuff, and you don't want to lose your wallet either. I've lost my wallet before. It's the worst thing, one of the worst things ever. Thankfully, I don't know where I lost it. It thankfully got sent back to me. It arrived in the mail like months later. But that's after as soon as you lose it, you're panicking, because you got to change all your cards. So if you got to make sure you remember where all your cards are. You got to get a new license, costs money, have to get all that kind of stuff. And then I ended up getting it back in the mail as lost mail. Someone must have found it and just tossed it in the mailbox. There was no cash in it at all. So I don't remember I don't know how I lost it or where it was. Can't even remember. But it's a sinking feeling when you even can't find your wallet, that's for sure. Yeah, I'm the same. You cannot not bring a wallet. And you don't want to leave your license in the car necessarily. Even if you're driving all the time in the same car, you don't want to leave stuff like that in the car, just in case someone breaks into your car. So it's you kind of have to carry it. I just have a tiny wallet though. It's not like it's a bunch of stuff, just a few cards, and that's it. So it's not like I have to carry around. giant bag of stuff anymore. So there we go. And Jason, good morning. Thanks for tuning in. We were talking about Jason. We've been talking about GICs, and but also old. We got back into the old days of banking and the old systems, and then how it's all kind of changed to tap and everything like that. Going through carrying a wallet. But I can't remember the last time. I probably tapped with my card, or put a card in. Probably like the last purchase was in the summer when I had a big purchase. Probably my tires, like it wouldn't accept, obviously. I didn't have, Shakepay wouldn't accept it. It's too much money. So I used the card, to put in. You don't even really have to sign for cards anymore, right? You just have to put the PIN number in as well. So everything kind of electronic, which works well. So there we go. It was a good chat. These ones always go fast when we get on sidetrack. So I was almost quarter two. So if anybody has any last minute comments, question, now is the time to fire it in. We'll be carrying on for a bit more, but it's always, if you have any last minute questions, now is the chance. And here we go. Turning back to stocks, Fintuit, that Brookfield Asset Management has been getting a bit of attention now. MC with that one. This is what I can find this. This is where it's confusing. Is it the new one? Or is it? I'm just looking at the two today. So Brookfield Asset Management Limited is up today, and then what's the other one? BN. Brookfield Corp is up 2.3%. So it's like the new one has been getting. So the new one, the spinoff, that got the new name or the old name, and then the old one got the new name. It's so confusing. So Brookfield Asset as the asset manager. Yeah. Okay. So it's actually, what have you been hearing about it basically? So is there any articles or anything written, or just kind of online Twitter, that kind of stuff? I'll have to. This is where I'm confused, not confused a little bit, but wondering what to put it into, because obviously with that spin-off and the split, I have both, right? BAM and BN, and obviously it's part of that 1 year challenge of putting in, like, my StreamYard subscription into Brookfield. I'm still wondering what one to do. And I was actually thinking of this morning earlier. I'm like, I guess I don't know. And I'm thinking, well, maybe what I'll end up doing is just split it into two. That's probably what I'll do to see. But it'd be interesting if you can if you let us know in the comments, MC, if there's any kind of, I'll maybe have to do a bit more searching online and see what the consensus is to put I believe BAM is going to be paying more dividend, if I'm not mistaken, is the idea. I'll have to really research. Yeah, the yield and growth. There we go. So there we go. Yeah. I'll have to really look into it a bit more, because again, I haven't. It'll be actually on the 1st. So coming up on next week too, I'll have to put a deposit. So I'll have to decide. That's my research for today. I have to definitely kind of dig into that and what actually to do. So current yield, projected growth. Yeah. Okay. I'll have to figure that out. I won't sell one or the other. I'll just, whatever I decide to put the money into, I'll just keep the other one just kind of sitting there. But I'll have to look into that. Thanks for pointing that out, MC. And we'll see how that goes. Yeah, I'm going to assume I'll have to do some more digging. Good to know how that kind of works out. All right. So on that note, I've got my research now more on Brookfield, and just going forward on a little bit of update for the channel. Going to be carrying on tomorrow, Friday. We will be doing the live stream. Next week, holiday. Probably keep an eye on the schedule. If we'll see how it goes. Obviously, when the market's closed, don't always jump on. But since everybody's kind of got a bit of a holiday, I might jump on. So obviously subscribe to the channel. Get to say it once. Keep subscribed to the channel, and then you'll get notified. If you have that notification bell on, you'll get notified of new streams as they get posted. But what I will also do coming forward is do a portfolio update over before the market kind of closes on the weekend. Always like to get one of those up a week. I know I've slacking in the past, but I'd like to do at least once a week with the portfolio update, which is great. And a couple other videos planned to be posted for a bit more beginner stuff. That's kind of my focus, kind of going back to basics this year, and just kind of reiterating the base and starting at the bottom, not starting at the bottom, but learning some basics and trying to sharing some of those. So that will be kind of the focus of some of the videos coming forward. If you're a bit more maybe an advanced investor, maybe not quite as interesting, but it's always kind of good to look at that, looking back and kind of looking and just more basics to make sure that it's nice to share that kind of stuff that is. And be able to look back and kind of look at how far you've kind of advanced, in terms of your knowledge, but also reinforce the base, and just as a reminder, So I want to get. There's been a lot of, like, the analytics of my channel show that there's a lot of people looking for kind of more beginner stuff. And that's what I'm going to try and focus on, basically, in a roundabout way. So just to kind of fill that gap, maybe there's that bit of a gap in YouTube. So that's where we focus on with some of the videos, but obviously still the portfolio updates, still the live streams. Live stream will be changing around a little bit, not the time, but just kind of the look. And but that's in the works. I'm still waiting for stuff to arrive, so we're kind of leveling that up come the new year, because these are a lot of fun to do, and I really appreciate everybody's taking their time out of their morning or almost afternoon, depending where you are. It's always great to have everybody here. So on that note, if you haven't done it yet already, hit that little like button on your way out. It's always appreciated. Helps the channel out. Channel's getting close to being monetized. Not quite there yet. I still get comments. A few people asking. It's not quite there. It's getting there. Every watch helps. So if there's maybe something that you want to go back and watch some of the back catalog of things, go ahead. That would definitely help it out. So the last comment we'll leave this off from Candace. Have a great afternoon, everybody. That's a good way to end. That's a good way to end the stream. We'll put the fireplace on to kind of roll out of here, but appreciate everybody. We'll catch you all tomorrow.